If you like this video, please give a thumbs up and subscribe. Hit the bell icon to be notified of new videos. This channel is running a contest. When I hit 250 subscribers, one lucky person will get $100. All you have to do is be subscribed. It is very fast and easy. YouTube has nothing to do with this contest. This channel is running everything. Try to think about, if you will, you are on foot via an area playing a stunningly clear day, when all of a surprising a metal gray cigar-shaped craft that measures shut to 300 meters in diameter slowly blocks out the solar above you and flies over you at an altitude of solely 100 meters, and to pinnacle it all off, in a while the US Air Force calls you delusional, pronouncing what you noticed used to be simply reflections of lights bouncing off plane and clouds. Pareidolia is a bluffing approach the USAF relies upon. Pareidolia is when a man or woman notices a phantasm or misperception involving an indistinct and difficult to understand stimulus such as a photo or sound as being significant. Much as all of us may also appear in the clouds and see shapes like animals, faces, and such. This of direction would make you sense greater than a little peeved at the USAF, however, attempt to recognize that America has an agenda, unlike some different nations like the UK, to conceal such sightings for army motives past us, or so they believe. You would suppose that if over a dozen humans noticed a UFO, then there would be greater believers. Not so with the Texas sighting. I saw a lot of effort was once being made to conceal this story and downplay it as a whole lot as possible. As I advised you earlier, when the debunkers conglomerate on a story, then there is a serious motive to trust it's real. It's additionally fascinating that the US Air Force made a declaration that virtually referred to as the 12 eyewitnesses liars, but a month later the US Air Force took that return and admitted to having F-16 warring parties on an education mission in the vicinity that the witnesses have been in. Media frenzy quickly fashioned and gave this sighting global representation, which is wanted due to the fact the American authorities try to downplay most sightings as illusions or plain lights. Silly rabbit, tricks are for kids. On January 8, 2008, the human beings in Stephenville and Dublin, Texas received an unforgettable eye-opening ride in their area. Over a dozen humans that protected a pilot, county constable, and many enterprise proprietors' countries that they have viewed a massive silent flying object that had brilliantly lit lights and flew low and quickly to the ground. There's no one to inform you that this shook up the little communities terribly. Some of the eyewitnesses additionally stated that they noticed US Air Force jets in warm pursuit in the back of the UFO. This atypical cigar-shaped craft was once honestly too large, quiet, and speedy to be an airplane. Many said that the large craft had lights that regularly modified configuration. The locals pronounced the flying craft for numerous weeks in the cities of Stephenville and Dublin. Note, Apollo 20 chapter and the alien cigar-shaped ship they desired to retrieve in Deport crater. Perhaps this is it after it has been repaired. Weather conditions at the time of the sighting on January 8, 2008, had been clear and the sky had no clouds, permitting human beings to have a clear view for extra than 10 miles. The temperature used to be in the 40s in Fahrenheit with a mild wind. Sunset fell at 5:44 p.m. A former airsite visitors controller used to be amongst the listing of eyewitnesses to the UFO. He used to be in the west of downtown Comanche. He had a description that used to be comparable to that of Constable Leroy Gaitan. He had viewed many lights that have been shifting round in no unique pattern. It lasted for 1 minute, and then they disappeared altogether, like turning off a switch. About 12 minutes later he noticed many army jets in the equal vicinity of the place the UFO had been, and he in contrast them in measurement to the UFO as being like raisins to a grapefruit. Other eyewitnesses stated it used to be 38 instances increased than that of the fighter jets. Since an F-16 is 49 feet long, we can conclude that the UFO used to be about 1,862 feet in diameter or 562.4 meters. One eyewitness used to be Ricky Sorrells, who was once standing in a discipline with many leafless timbers round when unexpectedly the mild above used to be blocked out with the aid of a tin barn grey metallic emitting uncommon mirage-like warmness waves, anti-gravity waves, refer Area S4 chapter, emitting from massive holes on the backside of the craft. These holes have been crater-like and have been evenly unfolding for the duration of the backside of the craft at distances of 40 toes from one another. Ricky stood breathlessly observing via the bushes as this mysterious object flows silently above him. He believed the crater-like holes in the backside of the craft have been about 6 to 8 feet throughout, with the internal phase of the crater regarded to be nearer to 3 feet in diameter. It is the writer's private faith (SCW) that these craters on the backside of the craft had been virtually anti-gravity mills that created the heat-like waves that Ricky noticed that day. Remember that this is a huge craft that may additionally be regarded as a small mum ship, so it has a lot of regions of 300 meters in diameter to use anti-gravity turbines to provide it flight. Remember in the Area S4 chapter that these anti-gravity turbines use issue 115 and that the thing measurement is smaller than a $0.50, but one of these coin dimension portions would electricity 3 anti-gravity mills for shut to 20 to 30 years of use. Notice if you will that large flying saucers appear to solely be viewed in densely populated areas like the wasteland and over the ocean as a substitute than over New York City or Los Angeles, which leads me to marvel if the US Air Force has a settlement with the aliens themselves to solely fly in targeted areas of Earth. The one issue that used to be lacking from this sighting was once video or photographic evidence to affirm it. It didn't take to an awful lot of time earlier than anybody in Texas divulge a video of the UFO. Virgil Fowler dispatched video pictures of a UFO to the Austin, Texas, Fox TV station. Soon later on the video unfolded throughout the internet and TV news. Although the video of the massive craft was once taken over Lake Travis in Austin, a whole location of Texas has been reporting UFOs, most reporting the equal 300-meter craft that those in Stephenville and Dublin had seen. The story first made the headlines when Peter Davenport of the National UFO Reporting Center was once a visitor on the Coast to Coast AM radio show, and he launched numerous reviews from the Stephenville area. Steve Allen, a veteran pilot, made the first record, and he talked about his journey on ABC News saying, "Flashing strobes, silent, flames out the bottom and jets chasing it." On the 1st of August 2008, at 6:15 p.m. CST, my pals and I have been observing the sundown when quite a few strobes or flashing lights coming from the east at about 3,500 toes and heading west towards Stephenville, Texas used to be observed. The estimated pace was once 2,000 to 3,000 miles per hour. Since an F-16 can solely tour up to Mach 2 or 1,500 miles per hour, it needs to have made for an exciting chase for the military. None of the F-16s fired any pictures at the UFO, however, this appears a usual US Navy method in most F-16 UFO encounters, possibly indicating a don't furnace until fired upon strategy. Steve Allen went on to say, the strobes made various modifications of flash patterns and configurations. The flight period lasted about 3 minutes. The front two strobes have been about 1/2 mile aside and the lower back ones had been about 1 mile returned from the front of the strobes. The bottom of the flashing lights got here to a vertical flashing. Then there have been 2 separate vertical flames about 1/4 mile aside for countless seconds and the craft used to be gone. We by no means heard any noise from the craft. They headed west toward Abilene, Texas. Then about 10 minutes later, the craft used to be considered again. This time with 2 jets chasing it. They had been headed east towards South Fort Worth, at about 4,000 toes altitude. The jets have been unable to trap up with the UFO and went off into the distance at full throttle. I am a pilot and have been flying for 30 years and have in no way viewed something like this in the area. The craft is no longer from around these parts. Multiple eyewitnesses demonstrated that they additionally noticed the 2 military jets in warm pursuit of the alien craft, which quickly pressed the Navy into admitting more, even if it wasn't everything. The Air Force Reserve admitted that on the night time of January 8, they had 10 F-16 fighter jets that have been keeping coaching flights in the Stephenville vicinity that night. Originally the 301st Fighter Wing at the Naval Air Station Fort Worth Joint Reserve Base stated, "None of our jets have been in the vicinity that night." The wing spokesman later reversed their phrases and stated that yes, they did make a mistake and jets had been flying in the place eyewitnesses attest them to have been. One of the most distinct reviews from a witness about the UFO buzzing around the vicinity used to be Constable Leroy Gaitan. Leroy lives with his wife, son, and daughter simply south of Dublin. Leroy has been constable for 4 years and a police officer for 17 years. He now not solely investigated this sighting, however, he and his son had been eyewitnesses themselves to the bizarre UFO that flew over them on January 8, 2008. On that Tuesday at shut to 7 p.m., he had strolled out towards his auto to get a savings card so he should hire a DirecTV film for his family. The 43-year-old Dublin Regulation Enforcement Constable stated that in all his life, he had by no means considered such bizarre flashing and colorations of lights in the sky. He said, "As I'm on foot again to the house, I observed first a crimson glow in the southwest sky. It was once like a fiery purple glow. It wasn't honestly like a light. It used to be greater like a fiery-looking ball." He persisted, pronouncing that the craft was once about 300 toes up, primarily based on the tree line, and it used to be shut to 500 yards from him. It was once no longer moving. It seemed to be hovering. As he stared at it, it slowly dwindled earlier than his eyes, possibly turning on a cloak. To his amazement, it reappeared again, nearly in a horizontal line from the place it had as soon as been, however now used to be a little in addition to the west. Leroy noticed it fade as if you have been slowly turning on and off a rheostat switch. But it didn't appear like a light, however instead, it used to be a shade like Lee had in no way viewed before, a fiery purple and no longer a vivid red. Around it was once a yellowish glow. He then went lower back interior his residence and informed his spouse about it. She gave him a peculiar look. Leroy rapidly goes again outdoor observed using his 8-year-old boy and they appear up into the sky, hoping to see it again. Then at about 4,000 toes altitude, they see white flashes of light. These have been extraordinarily shiny like LED lights and now not like a flash, however extra like a strobe. These lights had been no longer staying stationary in the sky, however as a substitute have been bouncing around to distinct locations. They appeared to comply with a sample the place one mild would go on and then off, then any other one would come on and go off. He went over to his automobile and took out a set of binoculars to attempt to get a higher view of the craft. It used to be challenging due to the fact the craft saved leaping about, however finally, when he did focal point on one, he should see nothing however light. There used to be no outline, nothing regarded to be connected to the 9 lights that have been unfolding an excellent distance aside from every other. Suddenly as if all the lights had been connected to the equal string, all at once, they rocketed off to the northeast sky at a velocity so quickly that it regarded not possible to him. Note, this can also point out that the lights show up as separate UFOs, due to the fact the ship itself might also be highly giant and invisible to the bare eye, but its maneuvering thrusters possibly what he used to be seeing. What I am announcing is, Roy noticed lights flashing on in one area then off, and acting in a one-of-a-kind place. I am suggesting they are all related to the equal ship, and that is why at the stop when they all shot off, they shot off collectively as if they have been one. There is science these days that lets in mild to bend round it to make matters show up invisible. Roy stated, I had hassle retaining up panning my binoculars. It used to be that speedy and they have been out of sight. I'm sitting there thinking, what was once this thing? He used to be started up at its speed, questioning that no human physique should stand up to the G-force that these matters used when they shot off. Leroy stated that on Saturday, January 12, 2008, he obtained to see a video that was once taken from the in-the-dash digital camera of a car. The video had pictures of the UFO that the officer watched that day. When Leroy considered the video he noticed the alien craft modified types 3 unique times. The first time, it used to be a white glow transferring very slowly. Then it was modified from white to inexperienced to blue and pink lights. It appeared nearly like a strobe light. Lee stated that a police officer on patrol had radioed in to inform him that he had considered a massive cigar-shaped aerial craft with 2 tall antennas topped with the aid of purple lights transferring slowly about 300 to 400 toes in the air Stephenville, Texas courthouse. The police officer stated it was once about 3 soccer fields in length. A PC rendition was once made of the object and it confirms the form of the craft viewed in the video referred to earlier. The police officer with the video said, "Keep watching," so he persevered to watch for any other 8 minutes. Then he noticed something unexpected, the UFO modified structure to appear like a jellyfish. Note, jellyfish UFOs have been considered over Russia a couple of times. He stated it can also even be in contrast to the form of a parachute and it used to be very shiny white. After 2 minutes extra the craft modifications vertically, like a line going up and down. The line regarded to be stable white no longer flashing. It stayed in that structure for a few greater minutes. This component was once transferring and the officer used to be having a bother focusing the camera. Then the police officer instructed me he and every other officer noticed some other craft just like this one about a mile at the back of the ones he was once observed with the camera. This digicam zooms in shut to 600x or 6 instances larger, however, you nevertheless can't see any kind of craft. In all, Leroy watched the tape for 16 minutes, earlier than the craft shot out of sight. He says that nearly a half of dozen police officers had viewed the UFOs over a few day periods, however, that they had been too afraid to come ahead for concern of dropping their jobs or being ridiculed. He says he used to be now not afraid of his boss because, in his role as Dublin Constable, he doesn't have a supervisor over him, however alternatively the accurate residents of Erith County are his bosses. So it would take hundreds of human beings for him to lose his position. On Larry King Live, Stanton Friedman, world-renowned UFO researcher and physicist stated that what humans noticed in Texas used to be too giant to be a common UFO, however was once a substitute for a mother ship or house carrier. When Larry King asks Friedman about the Navy jets chasing the UFO craft, Friedman stated, "Well, that's trendy practice. Larry, I hate to say this and it sounds unpatriotic, however, the Air Force has lied about UFOs for 50, extra than 50 for 60 years, actually. And this would be in retaining with that." Then he went on to say, "They favor to determine out how they work. They fear anyone else figuring out how they work. If they had been to announce some UFOs are alien spacecraft, I would count on there would be a push towards an Earthling orientation, as antagonistic to American, Chinese, whatever. I don't suppose any president wishes that." Later he stated that a lot of human beings ask him why the aliens don't simply come down and land on the White House lawn, and he constantly tells them that the President of the United States does no longer talk for 6 billion Earthlings. Often he doesn't even talk for 300 million Americans. MUFON consultant in Dallas, Texas Ken Cherry believes this sighting to be a long way most large mass sighting considering 1997 in Arizona when lots of witnesses noticed what is nowadays referred to as the Phoenix Lights. In the first 2 weeks of February of 2008, there have already been reviews of 2 greater disc-shaped aerial lights and spherical plasmas at the infrared deer feeder cameras in Brownwood, Texas. Note that in 2007 an uncommon image of an orange glow was once taken contrary a deer when a Natural World Digicam took its photo. In that photo, the glowing orange orb had 2 eye sockets, 1 nasal cavity, and a mouth. On the whole, the expression on the glowing orb's face seemed amazed at the surprising flashbulb of the Natural World camera. Lee Roy investigates these things given that he is the nearby regulation enforcement. Radar reviews that had been launched exhibit that eyewitnesses in the Stephenville region have been correct, something used to be viewed on radar passing over them. The object was once watched on radar as it flew over and previous Stephenville, Texas. It flew at once toward President Bush's Crawford Ranch. Radar stored sight of it until it used to be 10 miles the Bush Ranch. Then radar reviews say, the object left the radar screen, no longer being capable to be tracked. Leaving us with the unanswered question, how ought to any craft of such tremendous measurement come so shut to the US presidential ranch except getting a response from Navy aircraft? Unless of course, it used to be an Army craft. MUFON Stephenville Radar Report, a 77-page file states, this object used to be traveling to the southeast on a direct route in the direction of the Crawford Ranch, additionally acknowledged as President Bush's Western White House. The closing time the object used to be considered on radar at 8 p.m., it used to be persevering with on a direct direction to the Crawford Ranch and was once solely 10 miles away. Although humorous, George W. Bush was once traveling to the West Bank, Israel, Kuwait, Bahrain, possible secret US base here, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt from January 8 to 16, 2008, making it exceedingly not likely he used to be out on a pleasure journey in some large alien craft. So did the craft fly over the Crawford Ranch? That radar records used to be now not given out to the public, however, if it used to be headed in that course on the ultimate radar report, most probable the reply is yes, it flew over the presidential ranch. So if it used to be now not a coincidence, have been they possibly searching for or working with the president? Or does a species from beyond manipulate American politics for their very own gain? With President Bush being a former Army fighter pilot, it was once advised about the US Air Force having an alien mum ship. It ought to have been extraordinarily tempting for him to pilot such a craft, such as the one considered flying over his very ranch. Let me restate what I stated in a beforehand chapter about Bush. Former President George W. Bush determined to go skydiving on his 80th and 85th birthdays. His 85th birthday used to be now not his second, however actually, his 7th time that he skydived. This man is a risk-taker. If the Bushes are that wild even in ancient age, then can you think about what an ex-military jet pilot would do if he noticed a 300-meter alien ship in the palms of the USAF? It is very feasible that President Bush used his authority to take the helm of this ship from a hidden base and flown it midway around the world in mere minutes to take a seem to be at his very own ranch from the air. Please note that he has already carried out this in the previous as proof. On May 2, 2003, President Bush used his authority to co-pilot a Navy S-3B Viking hoverjet and flew it over to the USS Abraham Lincoln plane carrier. Bush mentioned that he did fly the craft on my own for a whilst stating, "Yes, I flew it. Yeah, of course, I appreciated it." His trip of being an F-102 fighter pilot lower back in the Texas Air National Guard used to be kicking in. It would simply be horrible for Bush to take manage of an alien technological know-how ship in USAF palms and fly it to the area he loves the most, Texas. Why the ranch? Easy, to go domestic and galvanize his folks, specifically George H.W. Bush with his new ride. It's clear that the sighting in Stephenville and Dublin, Texas had been by using capable people that genuinely noticed the unidentified craft of extensive proportions in the sky. Leroy stated that the Air Force didn't ship all and sundry to check out the video pictures that he had in his possession, which tells me that both the U.S. Air Force received nearer pictures from their F-16 fighter jets taking video, or the craft is owned by using the U.S. Air Force, which means given that such craft appears not possible to make today, that they most defiantly have such a craft from an alien treaty or agreement, something that most governments work towards, in hopes of gaining Navy superiority. It's convenient to disregard something like this as guessing. However, understand, if aliens do exist, what do you assume the United States authorities would do to get their fingers on their technology? Cultures heaps if now not thousands and thousands of years older than our very own would have a lot to provide our culture. I for my part sense that it's now not an army craft, however an alien craft buzzing the vicinity for future mission sites, beneath what agenda, solely they would know. On January 11, 2008, simply 3 days after the Stephenville UFO sighting, every other sighting of a lot smaller craft took vicinity simply 60 miles away in Denton, Texas. MUFON, Mutual UFO Network, stated that an eyewitness noticed the craft flying alongside the shores of Lake Ray Roberts. The character stated, "It used to be flying very slow, about 30 miles per hour and 30 to 50 yards away. It is regarded to be hugging the shoreline, flying at eye level. It made no sound at all." The anonymous eyewitness stated that the craft was once black and grey in look and was once triangular or delta-shaped. On his way to work at 6:50 a.m., he drove alongside Undergo Street, the place he first noticed a vivid white light flying coming over a hill close to the dam. The eyewitness had been in the Navy and had had a journey with Navy aircraft, however, this used to be a craft that he had by no means considered before. He slowed down the auto and opened the window to get a higher seam at it. It used to be no larger than his car. Its rear was once rectangular, with 3 spherical openings inside it. He may want to now not see any flames or exhaust coming from it. The pinnacle of the UFO had a cover structure that used to be lengthy and thin. The cover seemed metallic. The backside had panel strains or seams. It had 3 white lights, one in every one of its corners, glowing continuously barring blinking. Note, this ship has seams and is in the structure and color a stealth fighter. This is now not an alien craft, however a USAF new model of its stealth fighter with anti-gravity engines geared up into it. This will increase the opportunity that the mum ship used to be considered on January 8, 2008, in Stephenville may additionally be managed by using the USAF. On January 8, 2008, the Denton radar statistics confirmed a whole of 10 Army fighter jets from CAFB, Carswell Air Force Base. On radar, the jets flew in 3 separate groups. 2 agencies of 4 and a crew of 2. Radar reviews additionally exhibit an AWACS Airborne Warning and Command System plane in the vicinity of the UFO sighting. This AWACS plane was once in the place for over 4 hours, whilst the fighter jets had been solely there for a complete of 70 minutes. Note, this AWACS aircraft may additionally point out the USAF knew the UFO used to become. Using the radar information, the UFO's velocity used to be viewed to hit 2,100 miles per hour. The UFO's pace reached 532 miles per hour in 30 seconds, then 10 seconds later it unexpectedly slowed to 49 miles per hour. This sighting in Denton, Texas is too shut to the Stephenville sighting now not to be connected. The unusual aspect that stands out about this MUFON document is that the unknown eyewitness says that the craft had seen looks in its bottom. That ability the craft used to be made of smaller panels to make the backside of the craft. This does no longer conform to hundreds of thousands of UFO close-up reviews pronouncing they had been seamless, pinnacle and bottom. Therefore it can be concluded that the Denton Town UFO used to be only one of the USAF experimental crafts designed in Area S4 and conforms to the subsequent technology of stealth fighter shapes that they presently have already in use. Although designed in Area S4, the craft was once over 750 miles away, which means its domestic Navy base may want to be anywhere. 2008 3 human-like figures on Mars, 1 giant reptilian head with crown and 3 carved faces inside of mountain. On January 3, 2008, NASA posted an image taken by way of the Mars Spirit rover on their internet site that bloggers around the world started out scanning over cautiously to capture something that NASA may additionally have by accident let slip through. To everyone's amazement, some nameless individual in Asia did and posted it on the internet, inflicting huge exhilaration over the probabilities of lifestyles present on Mars. This led me to discoveries of a male and a feasible toddler determined close to the girl figure. I additionally observed a statue-like face, head only, in the excessive element of a reptilian searching skyward and carrying a crown with a jewel in it. I named it Wearing One. I discovered 3 carved faces on the aspect of the mountain of 3 unknown species, which can solely be in contrast to Mount Rushmore. When I discovered the NASA picture at http://photojournal.jpl.nasa.gov/jpeg/pr10216.jpg, I was once amazed at the quality. The figures themselves have been in the ways left aspect middle of the photo. I realized NASA labeled it false color, so I determined to exchange the color again to its unique kingdom to see what NASA used to be hiding. When I used auto stability for coloration adjustment from Photoshop, the colorings were modified slightly. The shade of the tunic-like garments became from brown to a darkish olive green, the faces from brown to pinkish. I say faces due to the fact even though information reviews solely one parent in the photo, there are definitely 2 or perhaps a 1/3 that of a child. That's right, there is a 2D parent mendacity on the floor very shut to the first figure. That's a little tidbit that you might not hear from information businesses around the world. However, if you seem to be at the unique NASA photograph, you will see the first discern is virtually searching down from the rock it is sitting on, as it looks to glare at the 2D parent mendacity on the ground. When searching for the authentic photo, I used to be amazed that information groups laughed and joked about the figure. The skeptics blew off this image as wind-shaped rock combined with the vivid imaginations of the public. Perhaps that brought on fewer humans to truly seem into the graphic itself for worry of being ridiculed or embarrassed in front of the scientific community. That is referred to as disinformation when the government releases, using media as their proxy, incorrect facts to counter the actual UFO data to confuse the facts. I took the unique photo and enlarged it in various instances of the usage of Windows Picture and Fax Viewer. Then I started scanning over it, cautiously attempting to discover different figures. Success, and I determined it so shut to the first parent that it may want to no longer perhaps be a coincidence. It was once simply a few steps in the front of the first figure. Next, I commenced scanning over the relaxation of the photo, which used to be a massive job in view that it covers so lots the vicinity of the Martian floor shut up. I located a sculpted reptilian-like face that used to be lying face up on the floor, wearing one. Compared in dimension to the figures, this face used to be, needless to say, carved from stone, and its measurement used to be 3 to 5 times longer than the complete top of the standing woman figure. This face is on the proper facet of the figures, or the left quarter, the core of the photo. We get a clear, distinctive facet view of it. Its mouth traces and small black eye make it show up reptilian in appearance, but on the pinnacle of its head, it looks to have a headdress. Note, the dark tinted shade of the eye looks to affirm reviews of the coloration of alien eyes considered in contact cases. The headdress is similar to that of an Indian chief with the feathers standing out, solely the face right here does now not have the hat go under the ear. The ear appears like it goes in a 30 to 40 diploma triangle and reaches a sharp factor that is 1/3 the distance from its brow to its chin. The ear goes out straight, comparable to a cat's ears laid lower back when they are aggravated or angry. This stone face seems to be connected to a neck and shoulders, frequently buried beneath the sandy dirt. If it has been a complete statue with most of the physique buried underneath the sand, then its dimension, if it has been standing up, in contrast to the figures, would be shut to that of the Statue of Liberty. The true measurement of the figures is nonetheless underneath the question. Where there may be smoke, there may be the hearth, I constantly say, so I went searching for different acquainted matters in the photograph. Then I discovered the 0.33 uncommon anomaly in the NASA photo. In the core of the photograph was once what seems to be now not just one, however 3 faces. I named them Wearing Two. The 3 faces are all after one another, however with a single house between that would suit one extra head into it. The 3 faces are every one of an extraordinary species. One appears lizard-like, reptilian, with uncommon extending skin like eyebrows and a flat head. The different appears buried to the chin and has a face comparable to a coyote, but flatter appears. The 1/3 face is unmistakably a face and now not a wind-weathered rock. It is the biggest of the faces and is set above the others on a slope. It seems to be semi-human-like but is greater comparable to chimpanzees than humans. 3 faces, searching in the equal direction, on the identical slope, after one every other would cast off most skeptics and non-believers about the existence of aliens on Mars. Why they have been constructed, I can solely speculate that it may additionally have been created to commemorate 3 top-notch leaders of 3 space-faring species coming collectively for a frequent good. ISCW will launch countless movies of these and different objects in this Mars photograph on most video websites inclusive of YouTube.com. So if you choose to see it, go to YouTube and Taiwan SCW, that's me. NASA cannot call up all objects that resemble man-made constructions. The use of NASA's model of Photoshop-like software to blur objects. However, NASA will strive to maintain up the charade by using hiding as plenty proof as they can earlier than it is viewed on their websites. Many tales have come out of NASA about human beings seeing pictures of whole cities, many instances larger than New York City. Those cities and buildings have been considered on now, not one. However, all planets and most moons, the eyewitnesses are generally below contract now not to inform something at some point of their employment with the authorities, or they would go through the repercussions deserving of revealing such secrets. Rumor has it that the US authorities are on a 200-year step by using STEP plan, integrating alien science alongside the way, at the quid of which they will disclose aliens to the world, and most of all, the actual purpose why they hid it for so long. However, NASA is 50 years old, so I count on we solely have 150 greater years to wait. But from the appears of it, it may additionally be in the subsequent 15 years if the public has whatever to say about it. NASA's Mars exploration rover Spirit took the photograph itself that triggered all the controversy, whilst it was once searching at the westward view from atop a small plateau. The Spirit rover rested on that plateau for countless months of 2007. The plateau is known as the home plate, and sits on the internal basin of the Columbia Hills very inside Gusev crater. Spirit used its panoramic digicam (PanCam) to take this picture someplace between November 6 and November 9 of 2007. Spirit landed on Mars on January 4, 2004, making its touchdown website someplace on the core horizon of this very photograph. Amazingly enough, the rover has persevered to characteristic successfully 17 instances previous its anticipated mission end. As of December 2008, the Spirit rover is nonetheless difficult at work and functioning properly sufficient to hold it transferring around, exploring, and photographing as an awful lot as it ought to find. NASA presently has plans to launch a new rover onto Mars in 2009, however, the price range value will prolong it a few years. This time it will be a supersized, souped-up nuclear-powered rover and is known as the Mars Science Lab. It will roam the plains of Mars in search of rocks that may also comprise microbial life. As if the figures on Mars had been now not massive enough. It will have many effects units that can probe rocks and soil in higher elements than the former rovers. This new rover will even incorporate a laser that can zap giant rocks from a distance, perchance to wreck them, and find out about the fragments. Let's seem at the publicized lady parent in the picture from a psychological point of view for a minute. When you appear at the predominant discern in the photograph, you are aware of some non-verbal cues from its function and stance. First off, you see that it seems to have curly brownish hair that stops at the shoulders, and to pinnacle it off, there appears to be a moderate pinkish place in the front of the hair, perhaps being the person's face searching in the path of the 2D laying down figure. Below the woman figures, the proper arm can be viewed as the curvature of the proper breast. The shoulder can be absolutely seen, mane to the elbow. The elbow is bent at 20 degrees. From the elbow, you can see the joints at the wrist and then the hand. The figure's pinkish paws and skin stands out from the darkish inexperienced garments the determined wears. At the factor the place the arm meets the wrist, there is but some other band in a barely downwards path at about 30 degrees. From these attitude adjustments from the shoulder to the hand, we can see that it has all the factors, joints, predicted of an authentic human arm and hand. When you comply with down her lower back alongside to her buttocks, the proper higher thigh goes to the knee at a 25-degree attitude downwards until it meets the knee, and at this point, the decreased leg goes backward, putting the foot beneath the determined to permit balance. The left leg is tougher to see, but the shadows from the inexperienced tunic it wears point out that the left leg is prolonged nearly straight out besides bending. The inexperienced tunic covers from the neck down, neck no longer visible, and extends to quit at the elbows and the ankles of the figure, however, wrap around the parent no longer loosely like a Roman tunic might, however tightly without the knee down. The girl determined is waving to the different individuals to get down or to decrease himself, perchance to forestall them from being viewed through the Spirit rover. Now we have considered with our very own eyes that the discern has a head, shoulders, arms, elbow, wrist, hand, buttocks, top and decrease legs, knees, crimson decrease hands, and a purple face, now not to point out beasts, so why do skeptics or NASA scientists nevertheless name this creature a rock? How many rocks like this one, created via nature, have you seen? The 2D determine is inside 6 arm lengths, first parent arm, of the standing figure. It lays down with its toes nearer to the standing parent and it is head furthest away from it. Its legs are collectively and are bent at a 20-degree attitude from the buttocks area. A single arm appears to be extending down with the hand resting on the sand. The figure's neck and head are actually described due to their pinkish tint as adversarial to the darkish inexperienced tunic it wears. The tunic once more covers most of the physique with its proper arm bent at a 45-degree attitude and its left hidden on its different side. From the bend in its proper arm, we can see that the character grows to become closer to the spirit rover. The tunic then stops barely under the neck area, revealing a section of the pinkish higher chest. It has little hair if at all due to the fact the head seems to be bald, and very purple when enlarged. A fascinating issue about these two figures is that each appears to have their heads grew to become in the path of the spirit rover as if they got here to see this uncommon object from Earth. Their inexperienced tight tunics stand out powerfully from the red-yellow dust and rocks of their surroundings. Coincidence? Perhaps, but how many coincidences have you heard about of comparable rocks on our planet? I for one have in no way viewed something that can remotely be in contrast to this picture except I examine it to images of a human family. The garb seems to be tunic-like but has some uncommon features that one may now not expect, alongside some refined variations from the standing discern and the laying down figure. Both tunics appear to have a darkish inexperienced color, but they additionally have a brilliant look or reflectiveness. Both figures have comparable in diagram garb, so possibly the garments themselves are made of some distinct fabric that displays off the heat, retaining their bodies cool in the Mars heat. Also, each figure has close to skin-tight clothing. The standing discern has a tunic that covers her neck, and when the tunic reaches her knee vicinity it starts off evolve to loosen and unfold out like a dress, stopping at her ankles.